This is part 2 of a conversation with Michael Rochin, and we brought Kayla, his wife, in to join us in this conversation, and we wanted to talk a little bit further about something that you had shared with us before about your struggles throughout your life of getting diagnosed and then wrestling with the diagnosis of ADHD. Mm-hmm. And John, you've shared your experience with that as well.
Yeah.
Your struggles with getting medicated, what kind of medications you were taking, how that was impacting you in a negative way, some positive ways, ratcheting up or down the dosages, and then how it has impacted your relationships, your work habits, all those kinds of things. And so we know that a lot of people wrestle and struggle with this in their families, maybe in a marriage, but also with kids.
Oh, yeah.
And so you guys have, you were kids, at one point in time and growing up with this. And so I thought it would be beneficial for us to have a conversation. It's also a connect point for people to, see you on Sunday and say, hey, you know what? I heard your conversation. That was super helpful for me, or I'd love to have a further conversation. Can we go out and have coffee or something like that so we can discuss this because I struggle with it or my kid struggles with it. So we want to bring that up. So can you give us a little backstory about like what you were wrestling with as a kid and then when you got diagnosed with ADHD?
Yeah. Man, as long as I can remember, my hallways were always just drywalled, like just a bunch of patches in the walls. I don't know how many times I had to have talks with my parents about like, you got to stop hitting yourself so hard or stop hitting yourself in general. Just growing up, I was just like very, very, I didn't know how to control my anger. I didn't know what to do with it. I was the only one in my family who had that issue. I was like that weird kid in the family. He's like, why is he's like slapping his head or banging his head against his bed? Like what's going on with him? I just remember growing up and like, I just did not know what to do with all the things going on in my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, like what? I don't know what to do. I'm always angry. And yeah, it was wild. My dad was a counselor, which, I mean, that was helpful, but still like they had no idea what was going on with me. They just thought I was like some just angry kid. So, and I also remember, a lot of that was I didn't have any like friends growing up. I didn't really care to have any or not to have many, but then I also felt like secluded when I didn't get invited to things or like the only time someone talked to me was like when I was like getting poked fun of. So, yes, I mean, like that was me growing up. And of course, no one in my family got along. It was just super dysfunctional family. And I thought that had to do with why I was the way that I was. But, no, it was.
Did you have, suspicions that you might have ADHD, or did you even know what that was?
I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
I always thought it was like just kids, like annoying kids. Like, why isn't the kid just like stop doing what he's doing? Yeah. Like, I thought that was ADHD. I thought it was just an attention thing.
Mm-hmm. So was it somebody at school that noticed something when you got tested, or when did you actually get evaluated to determine that you had ADHD?
No, I was like 32.
Oh wow! So it was later in life. Wow.
Okay. Yeah. No, I wish it was like I wish it was even in my 20s. I remember like being 20. I can never hold relationships. Like I'm surprised that we were, even when we were dating, we were like, why are we getting married? Like we were engaged. Like it's like we are very dysfunctional. Like we should not be together. I just remember just being just so irritable over everything. Like you didn't like make the kind of sandwich I wanted, or you put it in a bag with like what are you doing? I don't know. I just got upset for the most ridiculous things, and I was like that with every girlfriend I had before. Just get quiet and just like ignore people around me. Just become very irritable. I always wondered, like it always bothered me, like why am I so angry right now? I can never figure it out.
So then you got diagnosed, and started on medication.
Mm-hmm.
What was that experience like? Did it help right off the bat, or?
I'm still going through that process, but it's getting a lot better now that I know actually what it is, and then I know it's ADHD, and I've learned more about ADHD. Because again, like I mentioned, like I always thought it was just an attention thing, but now the more I read about it, it's like, wow, this has to do with that. But I would never trade it, like ever. It makes me an amazing dad, like, and now that I've learned more about it, it's making me a better husband. But as far as medication, like you were asking, it's been a ride.
It's still a part of the journey. You're
still part of the journey. There was one I'll never go back to because everyone reacts differently, but one specifically just maybe even worse, like maybe just like rage. But luckily I figured it out within like a week. So I stopped after that, but it was a pretty bad week.
So Kayla, give me kind of your perspective since you've, since you started dating Michael and then got married to him and your experience as he's been on this wrestling match with diagnosis and then taking medication for ADHD. What's that been like for you?
Oh, boy. Oh,
You got to get a little bit closer to the mic with that.
No, you're good. There you go.
I don't know. It's so hard to talk about just because like our dating relationship, like he mentioned, it was rough. Yeah. I mean, I would honestly say that it was like borderline abusive. We've had lots of different counselors, like couples therapy and everything, and everyone's like, oh, remember how it was when you first started dating? And like, go back to that time. And I was like, but that time sucked. Like,
I remember when your
really
roommate
bad.
Recorded me screaming.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, I had a roommate. This was right after we got engaged, too. So we were engaged at this time. And, yeah, we were in this fight. And my roommates came to me, and they were like, hey, I don't think you guys should get married.
Wow.
And this is why. And they had a recording of our fight. And I mean, like, our fights, they were getting big and they'd blow up, and then we'd kind of figure out a way to move on and get better. And I don't know why we ended up getting married. I think it was just,
I don't know either.
like, we put so much time and money and effort and like families, and I mean, it was so much planning that it was almost like, well, we already planned it, so we might as well go through. But
I think it's your parents, just them always being a couple, like together.
Yeah, my parents, they got engaged within 6 months, got married 6 months later, and they just celebrated 37 years.
Wow.
But yeah, so I've just always seen a couple that has fought and stayed together and worked through it. And that's what, like, I felt like Michael was my person, even though it was like sucking so bad. I pushed through it. We pushed through it. Now that he got his medication, he got figured out, and he's able to work through those things because he can identify his triggers. He can identify what's going on inside his brain. I've been able to look it up as well, look up the symptoms, look up triggers, look up things that cause these things so that I'm able to better understand him. And it's just helped me give him a lot more grace in those situations, which has helped him from going over the top with things. And like he said, it's made him an amazing dad. I mean, he's been an amazing dad since day one, but there's always been that little, I don't know, I've never seen a dad as hands-on and loving. Even with my dad, I have a great relationship with my dad. I've never seen a dad more hands-on and loving than I've seen with him. And that to me makes me love him more. And then just seeing him wanting to be a better person through, even though this like diagnosis, he just wants to be a better person through it, and which, I don't know, I'm really proud, I guess, is.
Thank you.
Like, I'm really
That's
proud
sweet.
of where he's come from.
I love that. I love that you guys have fought through a lot to get to where you're at right now. So let me ask you this. If you were speaking to another couple that, I mean, they are married and they're in a similar situation, it doesn't have to be ADHD, but struggling through some rough patches in their marriage, things look bleak. You might even be, somebody's might encourage you like, hey, this is not the right setup. What would you say to that person?
Go to therapy. Like, our thing was we were going as a couple. And going as a couple, we went to like 5 different marriage counselors, like as a couple. And they were, I mean, he hadn't known what his diagnosis was or anything yet. And so during those situations, we would just be button heads the whole time. And then we decided, hey, like, this isn't working. We are on the brink of divorce for the 100th time. We're going to try separate. And not only did he, like, I went and saw like a personal therapist because I have my own mental health issues that I've struggled with my whole life. But he needed somebody to help him with medication and stuff like that. So he saw a therapist, like an actual like marriage family therapist, and he saw a psychiatrist, which helped with like the medication and stuff. And that was the turning point. So so not only is like marriage counseling like encouraged, the most important thing is if you find yourselves fighting during marriage counseling and button heads because like he said, she said, all this stuff, it's just like going back and forth and nothing really gets resolved. Try it separately because that flipped our world upside down. And
Michael, any final thoughts?
Yeah. I think it's always good to have, like, aside from what Kayla said, of course, like the therapy is like hands down, like you got to do that. I think having people in your life that you can actually be honest with, who's not going to, just pat you on the back, like, it's okay. You're doing everything right. It's okay. This is, and then just like throw just like Christianese out there without, actually caring for the other person. I think that's like not caring for someone at all. If you just tell them that, you're fine. But like with you, Brian, like I've come to you and you called me out. You're like, you know what, Michael? I think you just like drama and you just want to be offended over things. I'm like, man, that is true. I was hoping you were
took it like a champ. He takes it like a champ.
I was really hoping you were going to say, no, that person is wrong. You did the right thing, but you didn't. You called me out. So I think everybody needs to have that person that, actually calls them out and like celebrates them when needed. Yeah. But like real accountability, like real.
That's great.
Yeah.
We love having you guys at our campus. We love having you guys involved in our campus. We love your story, what God's doing in your marriage and family with Ever. They're part of our Banning Omni Digital Creative Team, and we're doing fun stuff together. We're actually going to interview the team here in one of our next conversations, so we're looking forward to that. John, why don't you wrap this up for us? Any final comments from you?
Yeah, no, it's super important for people to experience authenticity in situations like this, especially marriages. Those situations are not easy because just like everything else that, I'm speaking from my side, having ADHD as well. I was never good at relationships until my marriage. And so and that's, been a battle, and we're here on the other side. So it's good for people to experience and hear you guys and your journey. And thank you for being authentic about it and genuine and transparent, so others can be hopefully encouraged and know they're not alone.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I love
being
that.
real with ourselves, God,
and others.
Yeah, and others. Real with God, ourselves, and others.